If you sent this 10 years into the past and tried to convince me it was a 2017 Honda Civic hatchback, I'd have a hard time believing you. Hey. The Civic, much like the Corolla, is supposed to be your cheap, economical option with minimal bells and whistles. However, over the last couple of years, this guy's gone in a bit of a different direction. Honda really upped their game in this 10th generation Civic, using a global platform that's now shared by the CR-V and the Accord. It also features what I would consider a pretty wild design compared to previous models. I'm impressed to see how far the Civic has come, really standing out with ride and build quality, and especially with this radical new look. While not being cheap, this EXL specifically goes for around $26,000, but I can't really argue with that when they give you an interior that can rival a $50,000 to $60,000 car. They're literally a leather-wrapped center console and a few material changes from this being considered luxury. I'm more familiar with 90s Civics, and I drove a 2008 extensively. As much as they were all well made and had good materials, they never felt like this. I don't really care to point out center consoles, but this is both ingenious on its use of space and infuriating on how you're supposed to use its space. The floating sliding cup holder always bashes your drink into the sliding armrest, with another cup holder below that is dangerously close to a powered USB port. In real-world use, my coffee flies back and forth when I stop and go, and I can never find my easy pass in this abyss of space. The center two-tier design gives you a couple of spots to place frequently used items, but the area underneath isn't entirely useful, being a bit hard to reach, and leaving your phone there isn't the best option since in my case, I experienced GPS signal issues. The 60/40 split on the rear seats makes this a great option for anyone needing a versatile car. It doesn't look like it would be this spacious from the outside, but it really is. Then again, this is exactly what you'd expect from a hatchback. The driver's heads-up display is flashy as hell while also being easy to read at a glance. While the center display looks good, it isn't really well thought out. This is just another situation where you can tell an auto manufacturer isn't in the software business. The stupid design award definitely goes to this piece of tech. The climate controls split between the physical and virtual spaces, and for no good reason as far as I can see. At least the Lexus RCF I showed previously had fully redundant physical buttons, but not this time. You must rely on the digital display to control fan speed, direction, and AC. Not to mention, I notoriously change the temperature every time I go for the volume, and what a horrendous volume function it is. At least the radio sound is incredible, with some impressive highs and bass tones, but a simple function like finding the EQ ends up being a long hunt and peck situation where you're fighting through slightly unresponsive touch-sensitive buttons and loads of menus. It's not all bad since there's endless amounts of options to customize, but my recommendation is to do it all before you even put the car in drive, then rely on the steering wheel controls as much as possible. Now this has to be the single most impressive Honda Civic I've ever driven. You would only hope so as they evolve over time. For 174 horsepower, this little four-cylinder knows how to move. Picks up rather nicely. If you're in drive, especially with the eco mode on, don't expect to go anywhere fast. But if you're rocking and rolling in the S gear like this, it ups the RPMs a little bit. You see them jump up high. You get a little bit better throttle response, as you would imagine. Considering how peppy the thing is, the gas mileage is phenomenal. Most times I can rock about 42, 45 miles to the gallon, but even when it's in S mode, it doesn't drop that quickly. That needle stays where it is. I'm not crazy about CVT transmissions, but this has to be one of the best CVT transmissions I've driven in. It's smooth, it transitions well, it kind of works exactly the way you want it to work for a CVT. Usually it's a letdown when I get a car with a CVT. In this case, this allows you to play with it a little bit. The steering wheel feels nice and chunky, it feels really good in your hands. The handling is really, it's good until it's not good. It still feels like it's going to hold on, but then it understeers. But it's kind of alarming how it's quick. You're holding on, then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I'm understeering. And it happens kind of like that. It's a quiet ride. It's nice and quiet in this car. It's really well built up. It doesn't feel hollow, it feels full. The interior really has substance to it in a sense where you're surrounded by this interior. The 2008 I drove cross country, it was well built up, but it still felt a little hollow in its own way. As quiet as the car is and as nice as the drive is, it doesn't exactly trample bumps the way you would want it to. Now I know this is no SUV or even a large enough car, but this takes a beating when it hits a bump. You really feel it throughout the entire chassis. I would put on like 14-inch wheels with the largest sidewall tire just to maybe give it a little more give. So the moral of the story there is just avoid bumps and you'll have a nice, smooth, and damn near luxurious ride, which is really weird for a Honda Civic. Now, despite how quiet the ride is, the engine is slightly loud. I hear it more than I think I would. So this merge section right here kind of forces you to floor it because it's so tight. Oh, we got an opening. This is gonna be exciting. Go, 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 Honda, go! 65 miles an hour. Ain't that bad. Very loud engine once it really gets up there. One feature I love and hate all at the same time is this blinker camera on the right-hand mirror, which is controlled by the end of the stalk. There's a button at the end of the stalk that allows you to turn it on and off. It's incredibly functional. It works very well. The 3 lines, the little red dash and the 2 orange dashes are very accurate. If I go to the climate control and I flick the right-hand blinker at the same time, if I'm in climate, it just takes over. It just slaps you around the interface a little too much. So it's a little bit clunky in that regard. You just got to learn the car a little bit more, but I'm really big into cars you can just get in and drive. You don't have to sit there and say, oh, if I own this, then I would know how to use it. Apparently it's pretty good at picking up rocks along the way too. Before I leave my favorite parking lot, I'm going to do my autocross section, which is always pretty fun, at least in the Subaru. Let's see how this thing handles it. Consider this my own personal Top Gear test track. So despite the unexpected understeer under extreme cornering, this Civic can hold its own when it comes to the quick bends. As for the exterior, this is a big love-hate scenario. The profile has some razor-sharp lines, and from some angles, it is a real looker. The hood angles create an aggressive look that helps it stand out in the front, really giving itself a presence and definitely more so than previous designs. I call it the plastic bits car because it has a lot of plastic design elements that I think both help it and hurt it. But something tells me the rear end of this car is not going to hold up in 10 years. I mean that both aesthetically, since it's a bit too jazzy, and literally, since I noticed when cleaning the back end, if you unclip the plastic part of the hatch, like this, a ton of debris gets stuck in there. Hosing it can get it out, but if you don't know about it and live on the East Coast, I bet it has a good chance of rusting out relatively quickly. Overall, this is impressive, being both fun and comfortable. I can definitely see why the Type R would be a blast to drive if this version is any hint. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more in the future, like and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching. Okay, Google. Play Eye the Fire.
All right, here's The Fire and I on Google Play Music.
That's not what I said.